So, I know we've already done a video similar to this over the last week or so regarding Brandon Miller and whether his draft stock was hurt by his poor interviews and, considering that he was coming into the pre-draft process out of shape. But after we did that video, with the amount of response we got in the comments section saying that Brandon Miller should not be the number 2 pick, Scoot Henderson should be the pick here, don't make the mistake, blah, 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 saying that Brandon Miller's mid, etc. I got very frustrated about it. Marcus and I had the discussion and we said that we should get on camera and chop this up and basically do another video. So firstly, before we get into what the video is, I just wanted to say that, I think a lot of people's judgments about Brandon Miller as a player are being clouded by the fact that he has this off-court stuff hanging over his head. I feel like we'd be hyping him up so much more as a potential prospect and how good he could be in the NBA if none of this was currently hanging over his head. So just wanted to make that frank that I was annoyed about it, so that's why we're doing this video. And that brings me into what we're doing today. So today, Marcus and myself are going to be arguing the case for Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson to be the number 2 pick to the Charlotte Hornets and why we believe that the Hornets should go in either direction. Are you excited for this, Marcus?
I'm pumped for this. Personally, in this video, obviously you're known as to be the Brandon Miller fan in this, out of us two. So I'll be debating for why Scoot should be the number 2 pick in this upcoming NBA draft. But before I give my little rebuttal for Scoot Henderson, I just wanted to pinpoint the facts that personally I think that Brandon Miller's troublesome pass, it's obviously created a lot of problems for this potential matchmaker, and especially considering Charlotte's predicament and their past history with Miles Bridges and James Bouknight as well, who have both had legal issues the past couple of years. And obviously, I could see why a lot of Charlotte Hornets fans would be intimidated by the prospect of Brandon Miller. They wouldn't want another locker room cancer almost. But at the same time, we have to restate, you're innocent until proven guilty, and Brandon Miller is yet to be proven guilty. So we're strictly arguing off the facts of how they actually fit within the Charlotte Hornets team. Just want to point that out.
Yeah, it's a good point to make. I just think that, what Brandon Miller brings as a prospect and as from his athletic makeup and, his production on the court, there shouldn't be any reason to, forget about that and what he does bring as a player and as a potential fit to the Hornets. But before we get into the arguments and before I let you start as to why you believe Scoot Henderson should be the number 2 pick, I'm just going to read out a couple of things from Jonathan Gavoni and Jonathan Wasserman regarding the prospects of the number 2 pick and where it currently sits. So Jonathan Gavoni said, while there is a process that will need to play out over the next month, it was hard to find a single NBA executive at the draft combine who believed that Scoot Henderson will eventually rise into the number 2 spot. Gavoni added, the door is still open for Henderson to blow Charlotte executives out of the water during his individual workout. And Jonathan Wasserman then echoed that reporting. He said, there is a current belief that members of Charlotte's front office think Miller can be a star. The idea that Scoot Henderson is the obvious Victor Wembanyama consolation prize has lost strength over the last few months. Some noted that people made up their minds on Henderson too early, especially after his big game against Victor Wembanyama in Las Vegas. Henderson, who missed time with injuries and wound up shutting down his season just over a week into March, shot 39.7% from the field since January 8th. Others suggested that teams may still have more confidence when evaluating Miller's success in a familiar NCAA setting compared to Henderson's in a ball-dominant role and the G League's freer-flowing pace. So, obviously, that pretty much, paints the picture of where the executives' heads are at and where they believe both these prospects sit in the draft standings, in the draft order. So,
Okay, so I'll begin my debate. I'll start it off with Charlotte Hornets as an organisation. So you look obviously at their last draft choices. They've got James Bouknight, who, he's had legal trouble where he was drink driving, and it hasn't really panned out all too well as much as people would have thought. People were thinking James Bouknight was going to be LaMelo Ball's co-partner in crime, but he's kind of struggled to get playing time. He's been in the G League, and it just hasn't really worked out. Despite him showing minimal potential, I would consider this a failure. And then you look at Miles Bridges, who again was finally bursting out onto the scene, looking like a potential perennial all-star for the future. Obviously, he's had legal trouble too, with, his assault charges. And yeah, we're not going to get all too into that because he might come back to the Charlotte Hornets, but, it's obviously not the greatest look on that organization. And I'm not saying that Brandon Miller is guilty in this instance, but if he was involved with the murder of Jameer Harris, obviously not the greatest look for the Charlotte Hornets, so I could definitely see why they would be pointing in the direction of Scoot Henderson. But it's not only that. Now let's talk about Scoot Henderson as a prospect. I mean, he's a 6'2" guard, 6'9" wingspan, averaged around 17, 5, and 7 assists. He's a stocky guard, he's ready-made, he plays both sides of the ball extremely well. The one problem he does have is his three-point shooting ability, but it's something that he's going to be working on constantly, especially if he's going to be a part of this Charlotte Hornets team. Playing next to a guy like LaMelo, who's ball dominant, it's not going to be in his hands as much as he may think, so he definitely will have to adjust, and maybe he plays a Terry Rozier sort of role. But it's not only that. I mean, this might be a long shot, but I'll list out to you a couple franchises who have made this two-guard situation kind of work, who, I mean, both players being point guards, which LaMelo and Scoot, they're both point guards, so obviously, this definitely coexists. So you have James Harden, Chris Paul. They were nearly minutes away from going to an NBA championship, to an NBA Finals appearance. They didn't make it. Chris Paul got injured, but I wouldn't consider that a failure. They made that work. Moving on, the Dallas Mavericks in 2011, they won the championships. They had Jason Kidd, Jason Terry. They were old, but they made it somehow work. You have CJ McCollum, Dame Lillard. They never made the NBA Finals, but they were a very good Portland Trailblazers team for almost a decade. I would consider that a win. Then we have John Wall, Brad Beal. They made that work, I would say. They made the playoffs consecutive years. They went pretty far. Couldn't get over the hump of LeBron and even the Raptors. But look, they were in a tough Eastern Conference with the Celtics, Raptors, the Cavs. I think they were a pretty solid team for consecutive years. Did they make it work? No, they didn't. But point is, you bring a guy like Scoot Henderson into the Charlotte Hornets, you get a true leader. Someone that they've been missing since the likes of Kemba Walker. A franchise point guard cornerstone who took them to the playoffs consecutive years. And the last time they made the playoffs, Kemba was on that squad. LaMelo Ball hasn't yet made the playoffs with the Charlotte team. So I think you bring in a guy like Scoot, he brings a winning mentality to the franchise. Someone with that dog mentality. I know that's a corny term to use, but he mirrors a mindset similar to a Russell Westbrook, a John Wall. Obviously, he has elite athleticism, strength. His speed is off the charts. His explosive leaping ability. But it's not only that. It's his vocal leadership that I think could really help this Charlotte team. They need a leader, someone who brings a voice into the locker room. And I'm not saying Brandon Miller is a criminal, but I'm just saying not someone who brings violence and potential off-the-court issues into the organization. So for that reason, look no further than Scoot Henderson. I think he's the leader and the man you would want leading your franchise out of the two, if we're looking off leadership purposes. And it's also like, yeah, I don't really view LaMelo Ball as a franchise leader. He's a bit immature, to be honest, for his age. I think he's personally one of my favourite players in the league, but at the same time, he doesn't scream out to me veteran presence. Scoot already has that as a rookie, I think. So for that reason, I could see why the Hornets would lean in the direction of Scoot Henderson. But once again, Brandon Miller, fit purposes, someone who can shoot the ball, play next to LaMelo and coexist. I think that's obviously the way you would go.
So I don't want to take away from what Scoot is as a player. I just want to make that very clear. And I don't want it to seem like I'm just in love with Brandon Miller as a player and I don't respect what Scoot brings to the table. Because Scoot, we've seen it time in, time out with other guys of his size. You know, they can be successful in this league. But when you have a guy like Brandon Miller at your disposal, a 6'9" player who potentially could still grow, we don't know, but a 6'9" wing forward type player with 6'11", 7-foot wingspan, offensive and defensive versatility. So both sides of the ball, he's got that star potential. He's an elite shot maker who displays an aptitude for hitting movement threes, off handoffs, pick and pops. He has clean, effortless mechanics. Some people might say it's too close to his chest and not high up in terms of the release, but you know, I wouldn't be too worried about that when you're hitting 41% of your threes on 6.5 attempts per game. It shows that kind of a stroke works, and even if it's a little bit, you know, too low, you've seen like guys like Tyrese Halliburton with unconventional jump shots hitting 40% from three every single year that they've been in the league. So there's no reason why it can't work, especially at his height and size. He should be able to get it off against long defenders regardless. His scoring ability off the dribble with high arcing shots off smaller defenders from the mid-range, deep pull-ups behind the arc. As that progressed throughout the season, he got better at getting to the rim with greater regularity. And for the people that are saying that he's unathletic or doesn't have the ability to, you know, really attack the paint and finish over strong, long defenders in the NBA, Exhibit A, the video we watched together, Marcus, or the one that I sent you when he played against South Carolina, and he was putting guys on skates and then he was finishing and posterizing dudes at the rim. And, you know, he seems like he's a very quiet-natured guy off the court. Even in the interviews, you can tell seems like he's a bit of an introvert, but when he gets onto the court, you can tell he's got that mentality that he wants to be the best, and that like once he's got that, the juice is flowing, and you know, he's got that competitiveness in his blood, he doesn't want anyone to beat him, and I feel like he's got that in him. And for a guy his size and for obviously what he brings from a scoring aspect, he can see that he's got that playmaking potential. He makes passes that players his size don't often attempt, you know, which is why he says he loves guys like Paul George, who's got that similar kind of game at 6'9", you know, long, got the two-way versatility, two-way potential to be that dominant player on both ends of the floor, as I mentioned already. And he can drive into the paint and then rise off over the defense to whip the pass to the opposite corner. He can also run pick and rolls as either the popper, the roller, or the ball handler. He can draw a blitz, then zip a pass to his rolling big. He has a great feel for the game, so his basketball IQ is definitely there. And when the ball's in his hands, he's got that flair, given his love for looking off of defenders. He's an active on-ball defender. His lateral quickness is great. He's got the length to contain multiple positions. I think his best positions are 2, 3, and 4 on defense at the moment. Probably the 2 and the 3 at this stage. The 4, I think he can defend, but once he puts on a bit of size, which with his frame, despite the fact that that's one of his concerns, that he's got a skinny legs and a skinny chest, I think that he's got the ability to put on 20 pounds of lean muscle, and then he'll be even more effective. So if he can be dominant at the size that he is right now, there's no reason once he puts on that extra bit of weight that no one will be able to stop him, in my opinion. And, you know, he's got good instincts of navigating screens. He hustles. He regularly logs chase down blocks. So he's, like I said, he's a factor on that end of the floor. He's a crafty ball handler. He's dramatically improved that side of his game. And as an at-rim finisher, he finished 65% of his shots at the rim from early December until March prior to the tournament. So he's a regular threat once he gets into the painted area that he'll finish, and he'll end up scoring the bucket. So putting the ball in the basket. So in terms of what he brings as from the plus side of it, that's there. Like, again, I'm making the case for him here, but I'm also going to touch on some negatives or some areas that people may see him as, like, you know, that he isn't great at. Obviously needs to improve his burst off the dribble, which some people, yes, they might say that, but if you look at some of his clips from high school, you look at, you know, the instances where he was driving to the paint and finishing over bigger defenders and flushing over them, I don't think he really needs to improve that too much. Again, he might just need to get out of second gear at times. He's skinny in the legs and the chest, as I mentioned, but again, I wouldn't worry about that. I think he'll improve that, and a lot of it had to do with, obviously, he suffered mono after the season. He had that groin injury. You know, some of his performances in the tournament and the lack of, you know, production come that time of the year was to do with a lot of those things. I'm not making an excuse for him, but I'm just pointing out some of the factors that did play a part as to why, you know, he may not have been as productive come March Madness time. But yeah, other than that and the off-court stuff, I think, like you said, innocent until proven guilty. I think that is a big question mark put over a guy, especially with the stuff that happened with Ja Morant and, you know, Miles Bridges, James Bouknight, like you've mentioned. You don't want another sort of negative, you know, spotlight coming into your franchise, but I think they're going to do all their due diligence. They're going to work him out on June the 10th. The Hornets are going to send their personnel to Tuscaloosa to delve into this case a bit more deeper, because again, what Brandon Miller can say right now is limited due to the fact that, you know, he's got that, you know, legal document that he has to provide to all teams to say that he's not inclined to comment too much on the matter. So they're going to do their own digging. They're going to do all their due diligence. They're going to make all the necessary checks before they say Brandon Miller is our guy. But again, like I said at the start of the video, let's not let the off-court stuff cloud our judgment. The same way we shouldn't let it cloud our judgment on Ja Morant.
Yeah.
Despite the fact Ja Morant flashed a gun on IG Live and for all the off-court problems Ja Morant has, he is a tremendous basketball player. He's one of the best players on planet Earth. Brandon Miller, for all the troubles he has off-court, we should have no concerns or no reason why... Sorry. We should have no concerns or no reasons why... Hold on. Fuck, just edit this bit out. So, we should have no concerns or no... Oh my god. Fuck's sake. Everything was going so well. See, no technical issues now. It's dust in my fucking mouth.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready, like...
So yeah, he's one of... Yeah, hold on. Fuck's sake.
We're both dying.
Bro, this is pissing me off now. I had such good momentum now that...
It's alright, bro. I can just edit this whole part out. It's fine.
Yeah, so, like I mentioned, Ja Morant, one of the best players on planet Earth. And, you know, again, we shouldn't let Brandon Miller's situation cloud our judgment of him and what he can do on the basketball court. 19 points per game, 9 rebounds a game as a freshman coming into college basketball, playing for one of the top teams in the country, in one of the toughest conferences, playing against, you know, very tough competition. It wasn't just against, you know, mid-major schools, etc. And the fact that he was named the freshman of the year when you had a lot of elite freshmen coming into college basketball this season just speaks volumes of what kind of player he was. He was a top 10 recruit coming out of high school into college. You know, he was a McDonald's All-American. He has pedigree behind him. He's got that mentality in him to be the best. And yes, another thing, when I saw his workout video, I just recently checked in on it on YouTube. He looked like he was working hard, and obviously there was a lot of sweat on his body, but he was looking like he was going at, like, you know, at a slow pace. So that's one question mark. When he does work out and when he does do certain drills, does he push himself hard enough? But I don't think that should be a concern. I think maybe that video was taken towards the conclusion of his workout. We don't know the, you know, the finer details of that. I know I'm vouching for a lot of negatives right now for him, but I have to be fair in this argument. But I just wanted to say, like, whatever you fans have in terms of a mindset regarding whether you want Scoot, whether you want Brandon Miller, just let it be known. Let's focus primarily on the basketball when we're comparing these two guys. I know it's a second pick. I know it's an important draft pick. It's a very big asset that a franchise has, any top 3 pick in the draft any given year. But we need to be fair on both of these guys and compare apples to apples and not say, oh, Scoot's the better prospect because Brandon Miller might have been involved in a murder. Like, that's just not fair. Same way if Scoot was involved in an off-court incident, we shouldn't immediately jump to that off-court stuff and focus in on that. Again, we shouldn't completely ignore it, but in my opinion, when you've got a player who's got this kind of ability, we shouldn't let that cloud our judgment just primarily off what's going on out there. And again, innocent until proven guilty, like I mentioned. You know, if it does come to be that he's suspended, you know, I'll come down hard on him as hard as I've come down on the guys that are, you know, criticizing him for saying that he's not a good prospect or they shouldn't be drafting him, etc., etc. So I'll let you rebut Marcus, but that's my take, and that's the reason why I would have the Hornets pick him at 2. And also, just before I finish up here, I think he's a better fit in terms of what he brings. You know, being able to play that wing role that the Hornets have craved for so long. A guy who can shoot the 3-pointer, who's got lockdown defensive potential, alongside a guy like LaMelo Ball, who can, you know, whip him the passes to him on the perimeter. And with the NBA game the way it is, it's more free-flowing, there's more space. The zone defense that they play in college isn't as prevalent in the NBA. It's going to allow him, with the better spacing in this league, to be even more effective offensively. So if he can produce the way he produced in the college game, with all those factors taken into place, that, you know, the game may not have been as suited to Brandon Miller's kind of game, it just leaves us with this question of how good can he actually be when he does have the better spacing and, you know, better players around him to have more of an impact. So watch this space.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I did use in my rebuttal the fact, like, the legal trouble thing with Brandon Miller, but I'm just thinking based off a organization side of things. Obviously, if you're Michael Jordan, you don't want to make another mistake here. You don't want to. It's just the Charlotte Hornets are such a tricky one because they're just filled with young talent. There's so much going on. You got players like Kai Jones, Bryce McGowans, James Bouknight. Like, they're all coming. Even Mark Williams. Like, these guys are playing in the G League and, like, fighting for minutes against veterans who you could argue they don't even deserve to be playing over these young guys. But with that being said, like, I've used Scoot, the leadership aspect is my main argument, I guess. He's a good voice for the locker room. It's just, even with, like, rebutting for Scoot, you have to consider, would the Charlotte Hornets, if they drafted Scoot, considering some may say he's a generational point guard talent, would they potentially look to trade either Scoot or even LaMelo Ball and just completely flip over their rebuild and just see what else is out there? Because, like, it's really tough, because obviously Brandon Miller, innocent till proven guilty, but it's just the question, do you want to take the risk on him? But then there's Scoot. He doesn't really fit in this organization next to LaMelo Ball. So do you just keep them together, or what do you do with them? It's like, they're in such a tricky situation. Charlotte Hornets fans, they're just desperate to win games, and I feel like the general consensus is they want Scoot Henderson, but there's no real logic behind it. I mean, I've seen a lot of videos and a lot of comments saying, why would we draft Brandon Miller? Like, he's not the right fit. He is the right fit. It's just the potential of the argument that what comes with Brandon Miller, is he innocent or guilty? So it's a decision that the Charlotte Hornets are going to have to weigh up. It's one of the toughest decisions probably in franchise history.
I just think there's a lazy narrative, like, to a lot of the fans. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You know, even with Scoot saying that he's the right pick in this situation, like, from what I look at it, is all the hype that was surrounding Scoot was obviously around those games that he played with Victor Wembanyama, and they saw that he performed in those games, but they maybe are just too centered in on and focused in on how he went in those games, and, you know, the fact that he, you know, pulled off some highlight plays and some athletic dunks throughout his G League career and his time in that season with G League Ignite, that may have clouded or, you know, blinded other people's judgments on what he actually is as a prospect. Because unless you really deep dive and dig into every single one of his games, you won't really all you'll see on Instagram or on YouTube dunks, is the flashy dunks, the athleticism,
next D-Rose,
you know, and, you know, correct, that sort of stuff. That, you know, the next Westbrook in terms of his athletic prowess. But, you know, we can't take away from the fact that he shot very poorly, 27.5% from beyond the arc this past season. You know, he was impressive in the pick and roll and from mid-range, but obviously he settled for a lot of long twos as well. He shot like 38.4% on long twos, and a lot of them were early in the shot clock. And then again, like I said, you take into the fact that he's only 6'2", and yeah, you made those points previously about James Harden and Chris Paul working together, Jason Terry and Jason Kidd.
It is completely different.
2 point guard duos that were.
Yeah, that was 6'7".
Because like Jason Kidd and Jason Terry, they're not as ball dominant. You know what I mean? Like Jason Terry, he likes to shoot the ball, but he doesn't really like dribble the shot clock out. Neither does Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd is very much a player that loves to get everyone else involved.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we say they're ball dominant, but at the same time, or they're 2 point guards, I should say, but. The prospects will be very different here because LaMelo loves to have the ball in his hands, and I feel like Scoot wants to be the alpha as well. So when we've seen it this season with Luka and Kyrie, having 2 top 10 talents in terms of point guard talents in the league playing together, both ball dominant, both wanting the ball in their hands in crucial stages, it showed that, when they did bring him in, it didn't necessarily translate to winning, despite the fact you could have 3 or 4 of the top 5 guys in the league playing under the one team. But if the chemistry's not there, and if, one guy's not willing to sacrifice for the other, then it's kind of like, it's not going to necessarily translate to winning basketball. So that's another example of current day basketball where 2 ball dominant guys haven't really worked out. Again, maybe a full season together with Luka and Kyrie, and you add another piece into that puzzle, maybe it's different. But I'm worried that may be the same thing with, Scoot and LaMelo, because one, you look at Luka, he's 6'8", 6'7", LaMelo's 6'7". Kyrie's about that 6'1", 6'2". Scoot's 6'1", 6'2". So that's probably your most comparable kind of.
Think of another one that literally there's no play like LaMelo Ball. Like, we're yet to see if he can play without it in his hands. Personally, I think he probably could, but it's just not to the highest level that he would compared to him having it in his hands. Like, I've seen him catch and shoot before, but I can't see him committing to a full season where it's like he's not the predominant ball handler, and Scoot's like, it's hard. It's like it's thinking of like, could Derrick Rose and Luka Doncic play together? Basically, it just doesn't really make all too many sense. Like a prime D Rose and Luka.
I kind of feel like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you're the Charlotte Hornets, like if you don't pick Brandon Miller and he turns out to be, some all NBA level talent, you're going to look stupid if you're the Hornets. But if you pick him and he has those legal troubles and Scoot ends up becoming an all NBA level talent, then it's the same thing. But let us know what you guys think anyway, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of comments. We'll be replying to all of them, as we always do. We love to interact with our viewers, our subs. If you haven't already, join the Bench Mob community. We're at 443 subscribers as we're filming this right now. We're on the road to 1,000, and if you guys aren't aware, we are giving away a jersey valued up to $200 Australian from the NBA store of your any jersey of your choice once we hit 1,000 subs. So any subscribers that subscribe to our channel within the 1,000 subs are in the running.
Yeah, absolutely. To all the Charlotte Hornets fans, I wish you guys all the best of luck. I don't want to see another Malik Monk or another James Bouknight or Miles Bridges fly through the doors. All this hidden potential going to waste. Pray for Scoot, pray for Miller. Hopefully they both succeed in the NBA. But for now, it's been Marcus from the Bench Mob. We've loved you guys. We've loved having you guys on the... We loved having you guys on watching us today. Hopefully you guys stay tuned for more. On my end, it's Marcus. We'll catch you guys next time.
This has been Danko. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.